In the heart of the American South, cradled between the ancient ridges of the Appalachian Mountains and the warm, salt-laced shores of the Gulf of Mexico, there lies a land of extraordinary contradiction and breathtaking beauty. A land where mountain streams tumble cold and clear over beds of smooth limestone, where cypress trees rise like cathedral columns from still, amber-coloured waters, where wild azaleas blaze in the spring light and autumn turns the hardwood ridges into a slow, burning tapestry of gold and crimson. This is Alabama. It is a place that the world, perhaps, has long underestimated. Alabama is, by many measures, one of the most biologically diverse states in the entire United States of America. It harbours more species of freshwater fish than any other state in the Union. More freshwater turtle species, more native mussel species, its rivers and streams are ancient highways of life. The Cahaba River alone, winding its slow green way through the red clay hills, is home to more species of fish than exist in all of the rivers of England combined. If you're not familiar with Alabama, it is known for having some of the most beautiful beaches. Yes, that's right. Alabama has around 50 miles of general Gulf coastline and over 600 miles of total tidal shoreline. It also has amazing natural wonders that makes you wonder, why haven't I been to this state yet? We will take a look at just a few of the things that make Alabama such a wonderful place. Stick around and you will see just how beautiful Alabama really is. There is a moment, and every person who has ever stood at the edge of the Gulf of Mexico along the Alabama coast knows this moment. When the heat of the day, the smell of the salt air, and the sound of that warm, slow surf combine into something that is less a sensory experience and more a feeling. Alabama's Gulf Coast is, by any honest measure, one of the most beautiful stretches of coastline in the United States of America. 32 miles of it, modest in length, yet extraordinary in character. It is a place that surprises people who arrive expecting a simple beach vacation and find instead something far more layered, far more alive, far more interesting than they had any reason to anticipate. Of all the places along Alabama's Gulf Coast, there is perhaps none more quietly, profoundly extraordinary than Dauphin Island. It sits at the mouth of Mobile Bay, a long, narrow barrier island just 14 miles in length. Dauphin Island has been, in historical and ecological terms, one of the most significant pieces of land on the northern Gulf Coast. Fort Gaines, built on the eastern tip of the island in the 1850s, stands today as one of the most remarkably well-preserved examples of 19th century American military architecture in the South. Its pentagonal walls of brick and mortar have watched over the entrance to Mobile Bay for over 170 years, and it was here, in the waters just offshore, that one of the pivotal naval engagements of the American Civil War was fought. The Battle of Mobile Bay, August 5, 1864. On the other side of the bay lies Fort Morgan. Union Admiral David Farragut, a man who had spent his entire life on the water and who possessed a sailor's absolute, almost fatalistic fearlessness in the face of danger, led a fleet of 18 ships into Mobile Bay in the pre-dawn darkness of that August morning. The Union fleet swept through. Fort Morgan, on the eastern shore of the bay entrance, fell. Mobile Bay was sealed. And the Confederacy lost one of its last significant Gulf Coast ports. History was made in these waters. Quiet, blue, beautiful waters that today carry nothing more dangerous than charter fishing boats and dolphin-watching cruises. East of Dauphin Island, past the long silver span of the Dauphin Island Bridge, and along the thin ribbon of land that stretches toward the Florida state line, lies the Alabama Gulf Coast that most visitors know and love. Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, two communities that, to the casual eye, might seem to be simply sun and sand resort towns, places of vacation condominiums and souvenir shops and frozen daiquiri stands. And they are all of those things, cheerfully and without apology. But they are also something more. Gulf Shores was, for much of the 20th century, a quiet, almost forgotten corner of Alabama, a place of small fishing camps and modest beach cottages. For most of Alabama's history, its own coastline was, in practical terms, almost inaccessible to the majority of its citizens. Today, Gulf Shores attracts millions of visitors each year. Tourism is the #1 industry here, which drives most of the local economy. It's known for being one of the best places for red snapper fishing in the Gulf. The sand here is unlike most beaches in the United States. Fine, soft, and almost impossibly white, it began its journey hundreds of miles away, eroded from ancient Appalachian quartz. And the water, warmer than the Atlantic, calmer than many coastal regions, creates an environment that feels almost designed for long, endless days along the shore. Spanning both Gulf Shores and Orange Beach is Gulf State Park. It's a 6,000-acre state park featuring sand dunes, lakes, beaches, and pine forests. This is one of the most visited state parks in the Southeast, and for good reason. It offers hiking, biking, freshwater fishing, and many more activities within minutes of the shoreline. Heading east towards the Florida state line is Orange Beach. The city earned its name from a small group of locals who tried to grow oranges, grapefruits, and satsuma trees in the area. But that was a long time ago. Today, Orange Beach has grown into one of the most sought-after vacation destinations in the entire American South, and the numbers tell a compelling story. The Gulf Shores and Orange Beach area collectively welcomes over 6 million visitors every single year. The water here is genuinely, startlingly beautiful. That clear, warm, emerald green Gulf water that greets you the moment you crest the last dune and see it for the first time. Families return year after year, often for decades, passing the tradition down from parents to children to grandchildren. It is that kind of place, the kind that gets into people, the kind that becomes, over time, not merely a vacation destination, but a part of a family's story. The Alabama coast is not just suntans and beaches as we move towards Mobile Bay. It's more than just beauty. It is Alabama history. There are moments traveling through the American South when history does not merely present itself to you through photographs in a museum or words on a placard. There are moments when it stands before you, full-sized and undiminished, and demands that you reckon with it. This is one of those moments. She is 680 feet long. She displaces nearly 35,000 tons of steel. Her main gun turrets, 3 of them, each one housing guns capable of hurling a projectile weighing as much as a small automobile a distance of over 20 miles, point skyward at the Mobile sky with a quiet, permanent authority. She has been sitting here in Battleship Memorial Park on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay since 1964. And yet, standing beside her, there is nothing remotely museum-like about her presence. She does not feel like a relic. She feels like a warning. This is the USS Alabama. And she is, without question, one of the most remarkable things you will ever stand next to in your life. Step aboard the USS Alabama today, and the first thing that strikes you is the scale of everything, and yet, paradoxically, the smallness of it. The guns are enormous. The steel is everywhere, thick and absolute and utterly indifferent to human comfort. These were not just machines of war, they were floating cities. Cities with their own hierarchy, their own customs, their own humor and tragedy and daily rhythm. In 1962, when the United States Navy announced that the USS Alabama was to be decommissioned and struck from the Naval Register, the people of Alabama refused to accept that she would simply be scrapped. A statewide fundraising effort gathered enough money, over $1 million, much of it in small donations from ordinary Alabama families, to purchase the ship from the Navy and bring her home. She was towed to Mobile in 1964 and berthed at what would become Battleship Memorial Park. Today, Battleship Memorial Park welcomes over 350,000 visitors every year. Families with children who run across the teak decks and peer wide-eyed down the barrels of guns the size of oak trees. Veterans who walk quietly through the spaces where they once lived and served, running their hands along the steel that they know better than any tour guide ever could. History students for whom the abstract facts of World War II suddenly, standing here, become entirely and overwhelmingly concrete. If you are ever within 100 miles of Mobile Bay, you owe it to yourself to come and stand beside her. She will not disappoint you. While Alabama has lovely beaches and it is one of the main drivers for tourism in the state, let's not forget how many more amazing places there are here. Heading towards northeast Alabama, there is a unique place with a unique story. There are waterfalls that impress you. And then there are waterfalls that stop you completely, that root your feet to the earth and empty your mind of every thought you carried with you to the edge. That remind you, in the most direct and unambiguous terms possible, that the natural world operates on a scale and with a patience that human experience can barely begin to comprehend. Noccalula Falls, on the northern edge of the city of Gadsden in Etowah County, is emphatically the second kind, 90 feet. That is how far Black Creek drops in a single, unbroken curtain of white water over the sandstone lip of this gorge, plunging into a pool of extraordinary clarity far below. The falls take their name from a legend, one of those stories that exists at the uncertain boundary between history and myth, between the documented and the deeply felt. Noccalula, the legend tells us, was the daughter of a Cherokee chief, promised in marriage to a man she did not love, a warrior of wealth and standing, chosen for political alliance rather than affection. She chose, on the morning of her wedding, to come to this place, to this edge, and not return. A bronze statue of Noccalula stands at the overlook, her figure forever poised at the precipice, gazing out over the gorge that carries her name. She has become, over the generations, a symbol not merely of tragedy but of something harder to name, a kind of fierce, unconquerable autonomy. Today, Noccalula Falls Park encompasses over 250 acres of gorge, forest, trail, and botanical garden surrounding this natural wonder, and it has become one of the most visited natural attractions in the state of Alabama. And it is not difficult to understand why. Alabama is home to 4 national forests. This is Bankhead National Forest, known as the Land of 1,000 Waterfalls. It is located in northwestern Alabama and includes the 25,000-acre Sipsey Wilderness. There is a particular kind of experience that the natural world occasionally offers, and that no theme park, no resort, no engineered attraction can replicate or replace. Caney Creek Falls, deep in the Bankhead National Forest, is that experience in its purest possible form. To reach it, you walk. The trail winds through one of the largest and most ecologically significant tracts of old-growth hardwood forest remaining in the state of Alabama, the Sipsey Wilderness. And then you round a bend in the trail, and there it is. Caney Creek Falls drops approximately 50 feet over broad, flat shelves of Pottsville sandstone, ancient rock laid down over 300 million years ago when this part of Alabama lay at the bottom of a warm, shallow sea. This is not a place that makes it onto many national lists. It does not have the marketing infrastructure of more famous waterfalls. It requires a moderate hike to reach 2.5 miles round trip through terrain that asks something of your legs and rewards you accordingly. And perhaps that is precisely what makes it so special. A few hours east towards the Georgia state line will take you to another natural wonder. This time, it is much larger and not as secluded. This is Little River Canyon in DeKalb County in the northeastern corner of Alabama, is the deepest canyon east of the Mississippi River. At its most dramatic points, the canyon walls drop over 600 feet, nearly 200 meters of sheer layered sandstone falling from the rim to the river below. The canyon stretches for over 12 miles through the Lookout Mountain Plateau, Little River is, quite literally, one of the most unusual rivers in the United States. It is a river that flows almost entirely atop a mountain. Little River Canyon National Preserve, administered by the National Park Service since 1992, protects over 15,000 acres of canyon, river, and surrounding forest. And what the Park Service has been wise enough to do here is relatively simple. They have largely left it alone. Alabama is full of surprises. It has always been full of surprises for those willing to look past what they think they know about this state and encounter what is actually here. Little River Canyon is one of the greatest of those surprises, a place that belongs in the same conversation as any natural wonder in the American East. A place that asks you, simply and without apology, to come and stand at its edge and look down. While the Talladega Superspeedway brings in over 100,000 fans per race weekend, let's focus on the natural beauty of Talladega National Forest. There's nearly 400,000 acres of it, and it's the largest public land holding in the state of Alabama. A forest so vast and so ecologically layered that scientists conducting biodiversity surveys within its boundaries continue to this day to find species previously unknown to science. The Talladega National Forest offers one of the great hiking experiences in the American South. The Pinhoti Trail, 172 miles of it winding through the Talladega and Cleburne County Highlands, is increasingly recognized as one of the finest long-distance hiking trails east of the Mississippi. Through hikers who complete the Pinhoti describe it in terms usually reserved for the Appalachian Trail itself, as a transformative journey through a landscape that reveals itself slowly, mile by mile, ridge by ridge, with a generosity and grandeur that builds rather than diminishes with distance. And then, in the southeastern corner of the forest, where the ridges rise to their highest and the air carries a coolness even in the height of summer, the land reaches its Alabama apex. Cheaha Mountain. At 2,413 feet above sea level, the highest point in the state of Alabama. From its rocky, wind-scoured summit, accessible by trail or by the road that winds up through the state park that surrounds it, the view on a clear day extends for over 100 miles in every direction. The forest below looks, from this height, like a living map of the Alabama highlands. And flowing down from these heights, fed by the springs and seeps of the mountain's upper slopes, is one of the most quietly beautiful waterfalls in the Alabama highlands. Cheaha Falls tumbles down a series of broad sandstone ledges in the cool forested ravine below the mountain's summit, dropping through a staircase of mossy rock into pools of exceptional clarity before continuing its journey down to the valley below. Cheaha Falls is the kind of place where you sit on a rock beside the water and lose track of time entirely, where the ordinary world recedes and something older and quieter takes its place. The highlands of northeastern Alabama have a way of surprising you. Just when you believe you've begun to understand the scale and character of this mountain country, just when the ridges and the forests and the ancient sandstone outcrops have started to feel familiar, the land offers something new, something that resets your understanding entirely. DeSoto Falls is, by any honest reckoning, one of the most dramatically beautiful waterfalls in the entire southeastern United States. Over 100 feet of Little River dropping in two magnificent tiers over ancient sandstone, the upper falls, broad and powerful, spreading across the full width of the creek before gathering itself and plunging again into the gorge below in a second, final, thundering descent that sends mist rolling through the surrounding hemlocks like slow, cool smoke. The overlook platform above the upper falls delivers a perspective that photographers travel from across the country to capture. The full two-tiered drop visible in a single frame, the gorge walls rising on both sides, the forest leaning in from every edge. In high water, after the spring rains have filled Little River to its banks, DeSoto Falls becomes something almost violent in its beauty. The roar is physical. The mist reaches the overlook railing. The ground beneath your feet carries a faint, constant trembling. The vibration of all that water meeting all that stone, transmitted upward through the bedrock of the mountain itself. DeSoto Falls does not ask for your attention politely. It commands it, completely, immediately, and without apology. It is the kind of place that makes conversation feel unnecessary and silence feel entirely natural. The kind of place that people visit once and spend years trying to find the right words to describe to those who have not yet seen it. Save yourself the trouble of finding the words. Come and hear it for yourself. The waterfalls and canyons of northeastern Alabama have shown us what water and time can carve from sandstone given a few 100 million years and sufficient determination. But travel west now into the ancient hill country of Franklin County, and the land offers something different entirely. Something that exists in a category of natural wonder so rare, so specific, and so genuinely otherworldly that the handful of places on Earth that share this particular secret are spoken of by naturalists in tones that border on reverence. Welcome to Dismal's Canyon. This place is like a fairy tale, a place so beautiful, so wondrous, you could get married here. Walking through Dismal's Canyon in the afternoon, you're walking through a microclimate that has remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years. The temperature inside the canyon runs 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the surrounding landscape, even in the depths of an Alabama summer. Dismal's Canyon is a slot canyon, a narrow, sinuous gorge cut into the ancient sandstone of the Appalachian foothills, its walls rising 30 to 40 feet on either side of a pathway so narrow that in places you can touch both walls simultaneously with outstretched arms. The canyon stretches for roughly a quarter mile through the Franklin County woodland, its floor a world of permanent cool shadow, of mosses and ferns of extraordinary antiquity, of pools fed by springs that emerge directly from the canyon walls, of silence so complete and so particular that it feels less like the absence of sound and more like the presence of something else entirely. Dismal's Canyon is one of only a handful of places in the entire world where a creature called the Dismalite makes its home. A species of bioluminescent fungus gnat found almost nowhere else on Earth. The Dismalite spends its larval stage clinging to the moist sandstone walls and mossy surfaces of the canyon, producing a steady, cold, blue-green bioluminescent glow that, on a dark night with no moon, transforms this ancient slot canyon into something that language genuinely struggles to contain. The walls glow. The floor glows. The reflections in the still pools double every point of light until the canyon seems to exist inside itself, a mirror universe of living blue-green fire, burning cold and silent in the Alabama dark. There are perhaps 2 or 3 other locations on the planet where bioluminescent organisms produce a comparable effect in a natural setting. Dismal's Canyon is the only one in North America. Come after dark. Bring your patience and your silence, and let the canyon show you what light really means. So far, we have mainly focused on some of the great natural wonders of Alabama. But there is a lot more to this state than just natural beauty. Huntsville, Alabama is home to the US Space and Rocket Center. The US Space and Rocket Center, which opened its doors in 1970, is today the largest space museum in the world, and it is, without question, one of the most extraordinary places you can stand anywhere in the United States of America, regardless of whether you have the slightest prior interest in space exploration. Outside, you can see a replica of the Saturn V rocket. This full-scale monument was built in 1999 to represent the iconic moon rocket, and it stands 363 feet tall. For the real one, we head inside. Because the moment you walk into the Davidson Center for Space Exploration and find yourself standing beneath a Saturn V rocket, the actual Saturn V rocket, 363 feet of it suspended above your head in a building specifically constructed to contain it, something happens that no photograph, no documentary, no description has ever adequately prepared a single visitor for. You understand, for the first time, what it actually took. But the Saturn V, that improbable, magnificent, world-changing machine standing against the Huntsville sky that was made by people, by engineers and machinists and mathematicians and dreamers who showed up every morning to a building in northern Alabama and worked with everything they had toward a goal that most of the world believed was impossible. It was not impossible. They proved that here, in Alabama. We've only touched some of the great things about Alabama. There is so much more to explore here, like the history of Birmingham, Alabama. Did you know it's called the Magic City? Because there are very few places worldwide with large, nearby deposits of coal, iron ore, and limestone, which is necessary to make steel. Due to this, it became a booming industrial center in the late 1800s, and it saw a quick and large population growth. This history can be found all over Alabama, with places like Sloss Furnace. You can visit Red Mountain or Vulcan Park to see abandoned mines. While at Vulcan Park, you can also visit the Iron Giant of Red Mountain. He is 56 feet tall. His pedestal adds another 124 feet. Total height from the base of the park to the tip of his raised spear, 179 feet of cast iron, making Vulcan the largest cast iron statue in the world, larger than any comparable iron figure anywhere on the face of the earth. A distinction that Birmingham holds with a quiet, entirely justified civic pride. We began this journey on a coastline of impossible white sand, where the ground-up heart of the Appalachian Mountains meets the warm, ancient waters of the Gulf of Mexico, where sea turtles have been coming ashore in the summer dark for 100 million years. We stood beside the guns of the USS Alabama, 35,000 tons of American steel, moored permanently in Mobile Bay, and felt the weight of history in a way that no textbook has ever managed to replicate. We descended into slot canyons carved by water and time from sandstone. We stood at the edge of the deepest canyon east of the Mississippi River and looked down at a river that, defying every principle of hydrology, flows along the very summit of its mountain. We walked through an old growth forest in the darkness and watched the canyon walls come alive with the blue-green light of creatures found almost nowhere else on this planet. We looked up at the most powerful machine ever built by human hands, 363 feet of rocket standing against the Alabama sky, and understood in the most direct and physical terms possible what the engineers and scientists of Huntsville contributed not merely to this state and this country, but to the entire story of what our species has dared to reach for. And we stood beside an iron god on a Birmingham ridge and looked out over a valley that built itself in the space of a single generation from raw ambition and red mountain ore into one of the great industrial cities of the American South. Alabama is a state that the world has long underestimated, a state whose name appears too often in the headlines of history's most painful chapters and too rarely in the conversation about America's most beautiful, most surprising, and most rewarding destinations. That is a conversation worth changing, because what this state holds in its rivers and its mountains, in its canyons and its forests, in its coastline and its cities, and the extraordinary, persistent wildness that runs like a current beneath all of it, is genuinely, objectively, without qualification or regional sentiment, remarkable. Come with curiosity. Come with time. Come with the willingness to be surprised by a state that has been surprising people quietly, consistently, and with great satisfaction for as long as anyone has been paying attention. Alabama is waiting. It has always been waiting. This is Alabama.